Hey, what's going on, everyone? Jun here with Hapa英会話, and joining me today, we have three special members. First, Die from Japan. Hey, Die, how are you doing today?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Where are you right now, Die?
Well, I was born and raised in Japan, but right now I live in Norway.
And how long have you lived in Norway?
For about 6 years now.
Next up, we got Charl from South Africa. What's going on, Charl? How you doing?
How's it? Doing well, thank you.
And Jem, we got Jem from the UK. How are you doing today?
Great, thanks.
皆さん、こんにちは。今日の企画はですね、日本人のリエさん、南アフリカ出身のシャールさんと、イギリス出身のジェムさんと、僕と4人で、日本と聞いて、日本の〇〇と聞いて、最初に思い浮かぶことは何ですかという、ちょっとしたゲームをやりたいと思います。今回はね、私含めて、4人のね、人たちがそれぞれの国から日本に思うことに対する答えをパッとね、シェアしていきたいと思いますので、これを見ている皆さんもね、〇〇と聞いて思い浮かぶものは何なのか、一緒に考えていってみてください。What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Japanese food? Japanese food. 日本食と聞いて最初に思い浮かぶ食べ物は何か Are you guys ready? One, two, three. All right. Let's start with the Gem. Sashimi. That's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Japanese food.
Yeah, because it's my favorite.
There you go. Dia, your answer was sushi. Okay, so pretty similar to Gem here. やはりお寿司。
はい。なんか外国で一番知られてるのもお寿司ですよね。Sorry, I spoke a little bit of Japanese, but yeah. And for Japanese people too, I think Japanese food, sushi.
ちなみに in Norway, do you get good sushi out there?
We have fresh salmon, but other types of fish are not very fresh, unfortunately.
And last, Shoro, ramen. Why ramen for you?
Just love noodles, man. You know, I lived in China for a number of years, and I think I got a crash course in eating noodles whilst living there. You know, and I also visited Japan, by the way, and I had the best ramen of my life in Tokyo.
And for me, natto, I love natto. I had natto this morning for breakfast. I actually eat natto for breakfast every single day. So I think that's the reason why I chose natto. Okay, very good, guys. Let's move on to our next question. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Japanese car brands? Japanese car brands. Here you go. 1, 2, 3. Toyota, and Hyundai. So South Africa, I will start there. Toyota, is that kind of the Japanese car that people think of?
Yeah, I would say so. Honda as well. But mainly Toyota. A lot of sports teams are sponsored by Toyota. So I guess that's why it's quite popular here in South Africa. Yeah.
Gotcha. And Ryu-san, やっぱりトヨタ。
そうですね。私はトヨタだと思ったんですけど、ノルウェーで一番見る日本車は日産リーフです。
Oh, wow. Nissan Leaf. Very cool. And Jem, you're the only one that chose Honda. Let me guess, do you drive a Honda or?
My parents do, yeah.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, they drive a Honda Jazz, but I think it's called a Honda Fit in Japan.
Yeah.
じゃあ次に行きましょう。What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Japanese anime? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. Two Sailor Moons and Full Metal. Full Metal, I will be very honest, I have never heard of that anime before. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the full name. It's quite a long name. That's how I got into anime.
And Jem and Dia, you guys both chose Sailor Moon. I'll start with you, Jem, Sailor Moon, of all the amazing animes Japan produces, why did you go with that one?
I grew up with it in the 90s on TV, so it's really nostalgic, takes me back to my childhood.
Yeah, the same. I also grew up watching it, and I had lots of Sailor Moon goods, like the costume and the small, like, compacto. Yeah, and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the reason why we chose our answers are pretty much all the same. For me, too, I grew up watching and reading Slam Dunk. That brings me back to like my elementary/middle school days. Who is the first person that comes to mind when you think of a really famous Japanese person? Okay, are you guys ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, very cool. We're split here. Perfect. Okay. Let's start with Die-san this time. Ken Watanabe.
Yeah, I would say he's the most successful Japanese actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's why.
For whatever reason, a really famous person from Japan typically has a last name Watanabe. I don't know if that's like a thing or not, but there's Ken Watanabe, there's Naomi Watanabe. If you're into basketball, there's Yuta Watanabe. It seems like the Watanabe last name genes has something about going global. Yeah. Let's go with the Charl. How about you?
Yeah, just a really famous storyteller, Spirited Away, just blew me away. And yeah, I rewatch it every year because it's such a good anime.
Hikaru Utada.
That's right. Hikaru Utada. That brings back
the
a lot.
Singer, yeah. And of course, the singer also speaks English, so there's a lot of international fame there. Some of the songs were also sung in English.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, First Love, Automatic. I think those are the two songs that I first got introduced to with Hikaru Utada. What's the first city that comes to mind when you think of Japan? Are you guys ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, there you go. All right, Osaka, Tokyo, Tokyo. Okay, so let's go with the Tokyo's first. Jem, Tokyo. I mean, I guess that's pretty much the obvious answer right there, right?
Yeah, well, I lived there for 4.5 years, so I consider it like my second home after England.
Perfect. All right. And I think I would say my immediate answer, of course, is going to be Tokyo, but I had to just put in Kanazawa/Uchinada just because that is where I spent 2 years working, and I have a lot of memories and a lot of friends there. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Japanese fashion? Japanese fashion. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Uniqlo, cosplay, and kawaii yukata. Okay, perfect. So let's go with a Uniqlo, DS-san.
This is definitely the biggest clothing chain in Japan. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Uniqlo.
100%. I shop there all the time. Living here in Los Angeles, it's one of my go-to places to get some clothes. And Jem, sorry, I always, for some reason, forget your answer.
No problem. Yukata, because it's summer, right?
Yukata. Gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about summer festivals. So that was the first thing that came to mind.
What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Japanese technology? Japanese technology. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Sony, Nintendo. Okay, perfect. There we go. All right. Jem, I'll start with you this time so I don't forget your answer. Nintendo.
Yeah, I grew up with it. I had a Nintendo 64 when I was a kid, all the way through to the Switch I'm playing now. So always Nintendo.
Perfect. Yeah. Tells a lot about the difference in our ages. I grew up with the basic Nintendo system with the 2 buttons. Is that
right? NES.
NES? Oh yeah. Nintendo system? What was a NES?
Entertainment system.
Entertainment system. There you go.
Yeah, Sony. Well, Sony products were really cool when I was a teenager.
I don't want to it will definitely, I mean, my age, I think a lot of people already know, like when I think of Sony, I think the first thing I think of is the Sony Walkman. Did you have the Walkman, or are you past that generation?
I didn't have a Walkman, but by the way, we're about the same age.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
But I had a Sony MD player.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which leads me right into mine. I think Sony MD player. When I got my first MD player here, I think I was a high school student. I felt super cool because nobody had it. It was such a Japanese thing to have. Everybody had a portable CD player. I was the only one with another Japanese friend that had an MD player, and I thought I was the coolest kid on campus with it. Brings back a lot of memories. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Japanese people? Japanese people. 1, 2, 3. All right. Disciplined, willing to help, kindness. So let's start with you, Die.
Yeah. I hear this word the most when I tell Norwegian people that I'm from Japan. So that's why I wrote down disciplined.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what are your feelings when you hear the word disciplined as a word to describe Japanese people, being a Japanese person?
I feel happy.
Yeah, discipline.
Yeah, and I think that's generally true.
Okay. Charl, I think you had willing to help.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when I visited Tokyo, I asked for directions. I asked, random people to help me, and they were more than happy, to show me the way. And some of them would literally walk, to the place in order to help me make sure that I get there safely. So I was quite pleasant. I was pleasantly surprised with their willingness to help me.
That is
help
amazing.
someone. Yeah, that is pretty cool. Yeah.
It's not just like, here it is on the map and just follow it. They will literally walk you all the way to the destination. That's happened to me before. I feel like that is a very unique trait of Japan, the culture and the people there. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Japanese culture? Here we go, guys. 1, 2, 3. Okay, very good. Okay, we'll start with you, Jen. Cleanliness.
I think people make it a point to keep things clean. So, for example, you start cleaning in your school in Japan when you're quite young, which is something we definitely don't do in the UK. I feel like people make it a point to keep their space clean, make it a point to keep themselves clean, for example, having a bath in the evening, that type of thing. So I think of also wearing a lot of white, which has a very pure, clean image.
Interesting. And yeah, for me, humbleness, humility, I guess you could use either word here, but yeah, I'm always taken aback. I think part of it is me growing up in Los Angeles. We can use a lot more of that here in the United States. But it makes it a very pleasant place to be in when everybody is that humble. So I definitely think of Japan as a very humble society. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Japan as a whole? Just Japan. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh.
So I wrote fun because I spent literally half of my 20s living in Japan, and your 20s are a very fun time usually. And I got to do so many things like travel to different cities, try different food, learn about the history, even going to lots of theme parks. So yeah, I just had a really fun time.
Well, I'm probably going to live in Norway for the rest of my life, but I am from Japan and it's my home country, so it's never going to change. And I'm proud to be Japanese.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. And for me, I have not tried every dish in the world, but I could safely say that of all the foods that I've tried so far, hands down, Japan has the best food. And on top of that, I feel like a lot of it is pretty healthy for you. So whenever I am traveling, whenever I'm away from Japan for too long, I think the one thing that I miss most is just Japanese food. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys very much for helping me out with this little game that we played today. And to everybody watching this, I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation about our thoughts of Japan. And to everybody watching the video, don't